Good evening, YouTube. This is Cobalt Lion here with another Hardspace Shipbreaker quick video. We're going to be doing a real quick teardown of a Mackerel Cockpit. This was a video that someone requested of me, as they said they were having a hard time getting the aluminum and the nanocarbon/titanium components separated. That is, the parts that need to go to the furnace and the processor, respectively. So let's get right into it. You can see here I've already started the teardown, largely of the mackerel. This was an exo ship, but any form of mackerel will have largely the same interior and framework. I've already taken the floor and ceiling out of the forward compartment, leaving us with really just the cockpit. The door on here has been removed, and you can see we still have these 4 anchors that are holding the cockpit into place. You can use whatever method you like to remove the anchors from the cockpit. I prefer using the stinger just so I don't cut anything that I don't mean to off. And with that, you have the cockpit removed. Sometimes you can just kind of nudge this with the force push, but that doesn't always work. So let's try tethering it to a wall. This is kind of like filleting a fish. We're just going to kind of remove the head, so to speak. The only thing you have to be cautious of doing this method is, you see this does get it kind of rotating or flying, and you don't want it to get too far away from you. From this point you can see the outer hull around the edges of the cockpit. So we're going to just take the split saw and I'm going to cut the anchors holding that in place at the cut points. Use caution. Some of the ships, as you get more into the mid game, will have coolant canisters or even a reactor sitting up here, so don't poke them with the laser. From this point you can simply take the outer shells off.
Object accepted for processing. Credits deposited.
And those can just go into the processor. I'll stop off here to grab some more tethers, because we will use them in the upcoming parts.
Welcome to Ventatron 9000. Have a nice day.
Now we've got the cockpit pointing straight down, which is not quite as ideal, but really not that big of a problem. The next thing I do is I pull out these 4 storage containers, which are in the corners of the cockpit. I do this because these are actually acting like a structural component and holding the, I guess you'd say, the inner crew compartment of the cockpit into its outer hull. That's actually a little scary when you think about it, that the overhead luggage bins are what's holding the ship together from flying apart, but that's what we're working with here. If you like, you can also use this point to simply take out the objects such as the seats, the wall computers, atmosphere regulators. I'm going to do that because I'm kind of a completionist here.
Salvage deposit accepted. Credits transferred.
depending on what you like to do, you can also use this opportunity to take the glass out of the front of the cockpit. I like to do that because it is a fairly expensive piece of material. It's 111 or so kilograms of glass, which is thick enough to make it worth, I think, throwing into the furnace. I know there's a lot of debate about that, but now what am I still hooked on here? Assuming you don't end up with some sort of physics issue like I am having here. There you go. Correct that with the split saw. You can simply use the split saw to make 4 cuts, and generally the glass will just pop right out. It can go into the furnace.
Raw material processed. Credits deposited.
Removing the outer hull from the inner cockpit is a little more hidden. I simply melt off these 4 small panels at the corner of the cockpit entrance. And from here, it may be difficult to see in the video, but there are 4, well, actually 8 structural beams that are linking the parts of the cockpit together. It's a little easier to see. They are the long blue beams next to the orange, right about where my cursor is pointing right now. This is holding the cockpit in. Simply melt the beams. I prefer to do this with the Stinger entirely, rather than trying to split saw them, because again, sometimes this seems to create a little physics bug. And when I cut the last beam closest to me, the entire inner cockpit should kind of pop out just like that. And it tends to come out in 2 parts. From that point, this entire section can be thrown into the furnace all at once. Any remaining panels can then be dragged out and melted for scrap.
Deposit accepted.
I personally don't bother taking lights off of panels such as this. They're worth very little money. I think only about a few dollars a piece. From here, all the remaining pieces are go into the processor. So I simply tether the entire nose of the ship into whichever processor is most convenient, letting it crash into a few things at a time.
Valuable object processed. Credits deposited.
And there you have it. That is the cockpit removal procedure for the Mackerel ship. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. or consider subscribing. Helps encourage me to make more videos. Till next time.